Virtual high five. How are you today? Well, I'm going to continue on with my story of why and how I became a van dweller. I started the van life. Now, yesterday I talked about why I did it and how I got started. But along the way, I just have a couple short stories. And then I want to talk about the difference between how I perceive home life, living in a house, and why it's so different than living in a van. I'm Minivan Lee, and I live in my minivan, and I have for almost 8 years. And I've made it really cozy. I think I'm scooting around. I sit on my knees. I have a no build, but I do recommend that you have good knees in order to do this style. I've got padding way down there, so it's very cozy and very comfortable. I got my pillows. And I've even got my cup holders. I've really learned to appreciate these. How many homes just have your cup holder right there? Well, a lot of you have your own tables and your desk and things like that. But I've got my cup holders, okay? I'd offer you some, but I'm way down here. Okay, so let's get started. So, just brief, I learned about van life from Cheap RV Living, and the reason I went, the catalyst was my daughter, son-in-law, and my favorite granddaughter moved to Ohio, Cincinnati. So I thought, this is it, I'm going to do it. And I did, and I got rid of everything. Within a month, I got rid of everything, and I stayed in Tucson for 2 months, and that was so wonderful. I got used to van life in my own city, and I highly recommend that for anybody getting started. Do it early, get yourself organized, get into your minivan or your van, whatever, and just live in your city. And that way you know where everything is, because everything is going to be out of whack. I guarantee you, you're not going to know what end is up, because you're not going to have everything perfect right away unless you have thought this out and you do a build out and you already had it all architecturally planned out and you built the cabinets, you built your bed frame. Let's say you have one of those ProMasters like Amazon uses. So yeah, you've already thought it out, or you had somebody actually do it for you. There's people that do that for you for a very high price, but they will build it out for you. Okay. Well, but even still, you're not going to know where is everything. You're going to be off balance. You're not going to be in your perfect comfort zone yet. So why not just stay in your location that is your comfort zone while you're getting used to making yourself comfortable inside of your rig, okay? So I really do recommend that, and that's what I did for 2 months. So I had a lot of tweaking going on. I was tweaking everything. What my minivan looked like is totally you wouldn't even recognize what I had going on. But over time, I have made it what it is. I know if I was going to maybe get a different minivan, this is my second minivan. My first one is exactly like this. And what I did was I just switched everything over. Yeah, I took everything from my old minivan and moved it into here. Yeah, I did the exact same thing. I had these drawers here. I had my closed drawers, the longer drawers here. I had my bins here, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. All my seats are out of my minivan. If you're new, if you've been watching me a while, you know all this. This is just a little bit of a catch up for everybody. Okay. So the last I talked about was becoming brave in El Paso. Well, I did move through the rest of, I got some stories. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm writing a book about it. And you'll, I've got some stories that I've actually written about, and in Texas, they all kind of center in Texas. Why? I guess maybe Texas is just so big, that all kinds of things will happen there. But I got lost in Texas around Dallas. There was this major construction going on, major. I knew about it. And before I was almost there, I stopped and got gas. So I asked the fella behind the counter, he was an older guy, looked quite knowledgeable of what was going on, and I asked them, and I said, what do you think? Is there a route that I can avoid the construction? They were really working on, no, it wasn't 40. Was it still I-10? Might have been 20. Yeah, okay. I know El Paso's on I-10, but then when you're going up to Dallas, El Paso, you're kind of going upward. Well, I did take the route. He told me about a route. I took it. I wasn't completely familiar with Google Maps yet. So I was a little new, you know. I mean, I knew my way around my city, but before I left. Well, I don't know. I must have missed something. And I was lost, and it was dark. I remember I was talking to my daughter going, oh my gosh, I'm like lost, you know. And I just wasn't perfect with Google Maps yet. Okay. And so, but I did finally find a Planet Fitness that I wanted to sleep in. It was very strange. It was a small town, and it was in a shopping center thing, and it was weird sleeping there, but I did. Woke up in the morning. I got to tell you this story. Woke up in the morning, yeah, and wanted to get going even when it was dark. I should not drive when it's dark. Well, I got lost again. I mean, I really did get lost. Here's what happened. I'll go ahead and tell you what I did. I figured out. I went to punch it in, and I'm probably still sleepy in bed. You know, I'm traveling the first time by myself solo, so everything's wacky, right? So I think what happened was I went to punch it in to get me to, it would be I-20 or wherever, I-40, whichever the highways it is. And I went to, so I could get going to Arkansas, through Arkansas, and get going. I think what happened was my finger hit it, and I dropped a pin. It was a pin drop or something. Well, it took me there. And I'm like, it got spookier and spookier and spookier and spookier. I was on this little road in the dark. And let me set up the scene. And I'm not exaggerating. You know how in the early morning, there's like hovering across the road is like this mist. It was a little country road. I was out in the middle of nowhere. And it was a little country road. And I'm seeing things like, oh my gosh, there's a raccoon would run by. I mean, it was a small road. And then next would a possum. Well, I'm not used to that. I'm from Arizona, so what the heck? And I don't remember any of them being in Ohio. And it was just, it was very, very, I was scared. Then I went past a cemetery, an old, it must have been a historical cemetery. I don't know. But I thought, oh, yikes. Oh, my gosh. So I'm like, and I'm looking, still not great at Google Maps. I should have really been looking at it better. Well, and I'm thinking it'll get me there. Then finally it says, you're here. After about an hour, it says, you're here. It was some sort, it said something Grove, and I've been trying to find it. I've even asked my friend who is actually from Texas and from Dallas area, and I asked her about it. It was a grove. It was some historical grove or something. And I realized, I thought, oh my gosh, I must have like dropped a pin or I hit the wrong thing. Well, then I got on it. I mean, it was really like at 4 a.m. It was, okay, so that was my excursion. That was my adventure in a Dallas area. So then I moved on. And it was pretty much non-eventful. Well, I did make it to Cincinnati, and yes, I did move into the basement, the remodeled basement of my daughter's. I probably stayed on and off. I really counted up. It was almost 2 years, but a lot happened in Cincinnati in the time. I did my first, I got bored. I thought my daughter and my son-in-law needed me more than what they did. Okay? Because my daughter was going to get working again. She's a nurse practitioner. But as it turned out, she was holding back on it. So I was bored. I thought, here's the thing. It was like, I want to be a nomad. I want van life. But I'm here. And I felt like, well, I need to be here. I wanted to be with my granddaughter, but my heart really was in Arizona. It really was. I mean, once you're in Arizona, I think it's hard to leave Arizona. I found that with a lot of nomads. They spend a lot of their time. They're from all over the country, but once they start spending a lot of time in Arizona, they just want to be there. They just do. It's a wonderful state. And I know they're having election issues this time again. They are. So they can't be too forthcoming with that. But for the most part, the state is a beautiful state. In every area, whether it's north, south, east, west, whatever, middle, it's totally different. It's just a whole different landscape wherever you go. It is so different. It's not like Ohio's kind of like farm country, you know. You go across Kansas or whatever, but Arizona is like, you got higher elevation north. You've got forest up there. Down here, down southern Arizona, you've got the desert. Well, anyways, my heart was really in Arizona, but I did stick it out. And I got bored and I got a job. I worked at Wendy's. I kept seeing when I would drive by and see hiring. We're hiring. Well, I thought, well, I'm just going to stop in. I need a job and I'm not going to stop until I find one. It was on Monday morning and I said, I'm not coming home until I have a job. I want a job. And I walked in and I'd never done fast food ever. When I was growing up, being a teenager or out of high school, I mean, I got regular jobs, you know, more, not fast food. And anyways, there wasn't that I don't even know if McDonald's was even available. I know we had Burger Chef and we had A&W's. Remember those? Oh, when I was a teenager. Yeah. Yeah, hang out, look at the boys and the boys looking at the girls. Yeah. Well, I did get a job. He said, thanks for your application. We'll call you. And I said, well, I'm going to find a job today. So if you want me, you better tell me now. And he goes, okay. Yeah. So I worked there on and off. I worked there and then I quit. Then I went back again. And then, I ended up working in, my first Amazon warehouse job. Yeah, and I talked about that quite a bit on my videos, my younger videos. But I was on and off in my van. By the time, at one point, I was almost 9 months before I left Ohio, I was living in my van. I wanted to live in my van. I just did. And I was really kind of tweaking it. I'd finally put my carpet in that's way underneath here. I finally took out all my seats. I took out my passenger seat. And so I was really getting going with it after the first year being in Cincinnati. I'll tell you what I did, though. The most fun that I had, well, of course, with my granddaughter. And then my daughter ended up having another baby while I was there. So I was a good help for that. That's probably why God wanted me to go there, is because he knew that I would be useful. Eventually, I would be useful for her and the family. Well, I was living in my minivan a lot of the time. And then I finally left. Okay, so those were the first couple years. That's kind of like what happened. Then what happened, I'll be brief on this one, I promise, is I was trying to get away from, there was an Arctic blast coming right before I left. Oh my gosh, it was going to get down to like 10 degrees. And it was an Arctic blast. And I'm not kidding, it was. So I tried to get away, almost made it to Indianapolis. I was going to take the high road this time because I'd already seen the lower. I wanted to take the high road. Well, I got stranded. My alternator just quit on me. So I had to be drugged back to Cincinnati where I knew there was a good mechanic. And I got stuck in the Arctic blast. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was when I spent, like I always mention with my sleeping bag, that, and And I had this one. I had one like this, minus 25. But it was the coldest I've ever been it was a it was 17 degrees. That's cold. 17 degrees. I was inside my sleeping bag, by the way. Yeah, it was still kind of cold. So I was buried under snow, and then that day I literally took off. But I took the lower route because I needed warmth. So there you go. There's my story of the first couple years. And then, of course, I was ready to go to my first RTR. Yay! Yeah. The first person, I'm still really good friends with him, was Max. He was the first one I met. I did meet Bob Wells at the RTR. I did meet him, and Sue Ann Carlson. And I made some friends, but Max was probably the most long-lasting one. Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about this, is I've been noticing, because there's such a difference. Okay. When I lived in a house, a bricks and sticks, as they call it, a house, I stayed in the house a lot. I really did. And I know a lot of retired people that do. They just stay in their house. If they're not working, they go home, they stay in their house. A lot of people my age. And the difference is, I was thinking about it this morning when I was at the park. I was at the park really early. It was still dark, and I found a plug-in in one of the Ramadas that I can plug in my Jackery, my power bank, my power station. You can see it right there. Yeah. So I got up actually really early. It was still dark, and I went out there. I had my bear spray and my alarm that you just pull on it, and it will, the big sound. But I was out there in the dark all by myself. Yeah, and I was thinking about it. I'm thinking, only in van life would I be doing this. Why would I be out here? Why would I be doing this if I wasn't in van life? And it was kind of fun. I thought, I'm not scared. I'm really not scared. Why? And there's no other reason I would be out here. You don't go from your house, get up early in the morning, throw your clothes on, and then go out and sit in a Ramada at a park and plug something in and sit there and be on your phone looking and just kind of looking around. I was looking up at the stars and everything. So, yeah. And if you're a boondocker, which I'm not much of a boondocker except in Quartzsite, if I was boondocking, sure, I'd be up early in the morning before it got dark and at night, and I'd be looking up and looking at the stars and just enjoying myself being outside. Sure. Well, if you live in a house, you don't normally do it. So there's a big difference. I get out so much more now, which is a big difference from being in Flagstaff. I got so bored with Flagstaff. I don't even want to go into it anymore. But I was so inactive the last month. I just sat in my van. I was so bored with Flagstaff, but there was no other place I wanted to go except Tucson. I just wanted to get to Tucson, but it was still too hot. So I was just twiddling my fingers. I got a lot of reading done. I did a lot of scripture reading, and I was doing a lot of studying, right? And watch TV and just hanging out in my little cave, my minivan cave. But it's just so different. My life is just so different right now. And I'm so busy. I'm so outside. And I know that if I was in a bricks and sticks, I would not be. I wouldn't. Not as much. Just yesterday, I was at a park, a different park. I was at a park, and I went and took my hammock out and put it up. And I was editing a video on my hammock, looking around at people. Would I be doing that if I was in a house? Probably not. Probably not. I probably would not do that. I'd just be at home on the computer, watching TV, yeah. but I'm out and about and I get to see people. I will mention this morning, I was ready. It was still dark, and I'm sitting there out in a Ramada. I know some of you go, you better be careful. Well, I was. I had my bear spray right there, and I saw a car pull up on the one side, and somebody was I could see him way off, and he was putting on his coat and stuff. And then he had something in his hand, and he was walking right towards me. So I got my bear spray, and I said, hold on. I go, what are you doing? He was about 12 feet from me. I said, what are you doing? I said, who are you? And he stopped, and I had the bear spray in my hand. And he goes, oh, well, I was just wanted to use the plug. I just have some food I want to warm up. And I walked up to him, and I said, oh, and I wanted to check him out. I felt that it was okay. I really did feel it was okay. But I was very cautious. And he was talking to me, and he was asking me questions. And I said, hey, I'm still trying to process who you are. So don't talk to me right now. Don't be asking me questions. And I kind of backed off, and he goes, I said, hey, you're a guy. I don't know. And he, yeah. Well, anyways, he comes there. I said, would you come here every morning? Because I didn't see him before. And I said, do you come here every morning? He goes, yeah, I come here. He goes, I live in my car. And he was dressed nice. He goes, yeah, I came from California, live in my car. And I just kind of he goes, you ever use one of these, some echo thing? And then I said, no, so we were just talking. But yeah, I was ready. I'm always on the lookout. I did just recently go to a safety first event. And it was kind of geared for women, because holiday shopping's coming up, and with the way that the world is. So I was ready. I was on the case. I'm looking around, making sure I'm doing 360s. But I was, I learned his name. And then once it got light, another fella came up with two beautiful dog huskies. And we were just talking a little bit. I actually had on my heated jacket, Kamimoto. They sent it to me 2-3 years ago. And I actually had that on, that I had it turned on. And so I got to meet him. I mean, I am out meeting people now that I would not be meeting if I was living in the sticks and bricks, right? Another thing, too, is I found that when I lived in the sticks and bricks, I ate more. I just ate more food. There was more it was a bigger refrigerator, so I could pack stuff in there. And I did like sweets. I did like ice cream. And here, I just don't eat as much. So I'm more active. I eat better choices and less food. More active. And while I was out there the last couple of days, I've really been exercising. I figure if I'm powering up my thing, I might as well. I took my weights. I took my bands, that I could do my bands. And did my leg exercises and stretched and everything while I was doing it. So I'm out more, out on my hammock more, out getting fresh air and sunlight more. So I just wanted to express the difference that I have experienced. You might experience something totally different, but this is I'm just letting you know what my story is with this. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I will end this now, and tomorrow I'll move on to something else. But I just wanted to let you know what I experienced as a getting started in the nomad life, and what I have noticed the difference between living in a house, because I remember living in a house. I mean, I lived in a house a lot more than I ever lived in a minivan in my life, right? Because I'm in my 70s. So yeah, I actually lived in a house a whole lot more, 60 years, So I hope that you've really had a good day. I love you guys so much. Thanks for spending time with me. I love that. Please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And if you want to know how to do this, I've got the book on Amazon, and it's called How to Live in a Minivan, the Minivan Lee Way. So, and it's on Amazon. It's not expensive. So I'll say goodbye now. Mwah. Love you guys. Bye. Good things are coming your way. Good things are coming my way. And here's something I haven't said in a long time. Remember, what you hold in your head, you're going to hold in your hand. Your thoughts, in most cases, determine what you see out here. Attitude, everything. So, remember that. Bye. Love you.